So, welcome to the Value of Values podcast. I'm here with the amazing Alicia Romano, and she is a CEO of a beautiful organization in Pittsburgh. And I'll let you tell a little bit of that story.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am with CHS. So I have started a Community Human Services, or what we refer to as CHS, since June of 2022. And we are one of the largest housing providers in Pittsburgh. We specialize in working with folks who are housing insecure and food insecure. We do have one of the largest food pantries in Allegheny County, located over in South Oakland. We serve about up to 400 individuals weekly. And from a housing perspective, we're serving thousands of people on an annual basis. We have residential services. The good majority of what we do are shelter-based services. We also offer housing assistance, utility bill assistance to folks. The majority of our staff are community support staff or case managers, where we're connecting individuals to services and helping them to become sustainable and connecting them to the resources that they need in order to be able to put a roof over their heads and keep a roof over their heads is our goal. And in Pittsburgh right now, homelessness is such a hot topic. So you're sort of seeing it all over the news, and I'm just really excited to be a part of the solution.
It's a hot. I mean, there's a lot of homeless happening in Pittsburgh now with what's going on here.
Yeah, I think, it's a hot topic really across the country. I mean, Pittsburgh is not unique, to other larger cities. I mean, especially when you look at much larger cities, obviously, like LA and New York City, you're looking at much larger numbers. Whereas in Pittsburgh, it was reported over 900 people were unhoused in Pittsburgh based on a point of time study that the county did in January of 2023. And we know that number is underreported. I mean, it is nearly impossible to count every individual who's unhoused, and it certainly doesn't include the number of individuals who are unstably housed or couch surfing, folks who don't necessarily hold a lease, definitely don't hold a mortgage, but who are staying with friends, staying with family, moving locations often. So it doesn't include those folks. We would be talking about numbers in the thousands at that point, but
yeah. Well, it certainly is amazing work and important work, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk, because the focus of what we're trying to do with this podcast is just really explore and understand, what is it about ourself, what is driving us, what are those things that we connect with, and then how does that relate to what we do in our lives, in our workspace, in our organizations, and how do we see that impacting those that we work with? So you're working in a very important and an incredible space, and I thought this would be a great conversation to sort of explore that, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. It's like the difference between people who spend their entire careers working in nonprofit versus people who spend their entire careers working in corporate. I mean, it's all important. It's all gold, so to speak. But there are folks that lean toward the nonprofit sector. There are folks that lean toward the corporate sector. And I don't necessarily know the answer of, what makes someone lean one way or the other. I mean, I guess I know for me, I mean, I feel like I have had nonprofit in my blood since before I knew what that word meant.
Were you always in nonprofit?
I was, yeah. I started my career out working in nonprofit. I started working with young people in residential treatment facilities, group home type settings. I got my master's degree in professional counseling. I did direct care work for a period of time in hospital settings. For-profit hospital settings down in Virginia. When I got my master's degree, I started working as a therapist in residential. I did individual therapy and family therapy. I did bounce over to the for-profit sector in that field for just under a year, knowing that was just a bit of a stepping stone for me. I very quickly got sucked back into the nonprofit sector, and I wasn't surprised that I ended
Get out, they keep pulling me back in.
Yeah. I worked at Planned Parenthood for a really long time. I was there for about 8.5 years, Planned Parenthood of Western Pennsylvania, and Had also spent about 4.5 years, at Allies for Health and Wellbeing, where I was specializing in, working with folks who are specializing in HIV treatment and prevention, and now at Community Human Services, working with the housing and food insecure. So I've always been in some type of service field, nonprofit service field, whether it be from a counseling perspective to medical management, and outreach, community outreach type work, to now, in my executive level position, working with a tremendous team. We have about 4 or 5 staff who are just absolutely fantastic, making a real difference in Pittsburgh.
We'll have to talk about that team, but
love to.
I think this is even more exciting from my perspective, given your background, because I think this gives, I'm getting like goosebumps here. I don't know if you can see this, but and this will be all audio, so you couldn't see it anyway. What I'm curious, given your background, you may have really good insights into, and I'm big into this core value stuff, as we've always talked about. I think that's the big thing that's driving people. So what is it from your experience? How did you relate to core values? Was that something that you knew as you were coming up? Or how did you get in tune with them? Where did they come up, and how did they come about? I'm stacking questions I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, that's okay. No. So this is a really great question. And I think, well, here, I might actually, typically, I like to start from early on and move to present day, but I think I need to do this backwards.
Well, go wherever you want.
Yeah, I think I need to do this backwards, because truthfully, and I am going to say for all the folks who are listening, that you did not pay me to say this. I want to make that clear. I didn't become really truly in tune with my core values until I went through the process of the work that you did with me and my team in my previous role. That wasn't until that time that it all started to click for me and make sense. And I think that that's because you had helped me put words to my feelings and put words to my thoughts. It was easy for me to be able to identify my core values and to check in on them and make sure that I'm living by them every day, personally and professionally. But it wasn't until you did that work that you had done with us in my previous job that really helps me to put language to it or put words to it.
Well, that means a lot to me. Thank you for sharing that. It is interesting. And we were talking a little bit before we started. I feel, and when I speak to somebody like you who has this incredible knowledge and experience, and when you say something like that, it sort of helps me validate that I think we're all going through this awakening.
Yeah, and I think that but I think before you hit record, we were talking a little bit about COVID and how that sort of launched this awakening. I can only speak for myself whenever I say that for me, I can absolutely attribute this awakening, so to speak, to COVID, because what it did was forced me to spend time with just myself and my own thoughts. I mean, I live alone, I have a super cute little dog, but it's just, at the time it was just me and myself and I really embraced that time, while also being horrified at what was going on in the world as it related to COVID. But for me personally, in my small bubble, I really embraced it. I was somebody that was constantly running, whether it was working, going to spend time with friends, going to shows. I was always busy and I was always active, and I felt it really weighing heavily on my body and on my soul. And I knew it while it was happening. I felt this stress of having to be here and be there and be everywhere. So when COVID hit, and the first time I heard that there was going to potentially be a shutdown, or there was considering some type of shutdown, and we were all just trying to figure out what that meant, I got really nervous and scared, because I was going to go from basically, instead of 0 to 60, I was going to go from 60 to 0, as far as my level of activity and the speed at which I was moving at. But the second it hit, the moment it hit, there was no difficult transition for me. I literally went from being out in the world, just as everybody was, go, 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 to now, no, 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 no. There's nothing to do but just spend time in your house. And when you're living alone, you're just spent time with your own thoughts. And I embraced it. I mean, I really, I just embraced it. My brain slowed down and I was able to start to be more present in my mind and in my body. And I started to meditate and I started to read more books and go on more walks and spend more time out in nature, just by myself. And, we all think that we know ourselves, we spend time with ourselves every day, but do we really spend quality time with ourselves? Do we really ask ourselves questions? Do we really challenge ourselves? Maybe some people do. I definitely learned quickly that I was not. So
Wow.
again, COVID helped that, helped me with that. And, yeah, there are certain aspects of it where, again, I mean, really horrifying experience. And I was able to find that silver lining in it.
That is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. That's incredible. Are there times now when you reflect and you sit and you think about it, and as you said, getting to know yourself, are there examples that you can see and reach back to and say, that was something that now I realize that feeling or that's something I had related to a core value that I had, now that I'm sort of aware of it? Are there examples that you can point to now that you could say, okay, this experience was because I went through this lens, and that's something I realize is a core value of mine?
I think I'm answering your question correctly. The thing that comes to my mind when you ask that is when it comes to reliability. So for me, reliability is a core value of mine. It's one of my core values. I will say that for whatever reason, I have experienced a lot of disappointment in my life. That word disappointment is something that I've been presented with for the majority of my life. I remember being very young. I remember growing up. I remember being a teenager and then in college. And I just remember always having this feeling of disappointment. And it typically came from people not doing what they said that they were going to do, whether it was a family member. I remember being very, very little and feeling disappointed, by, when you're a little kid, somebody, a grown-up tells you something's going to happen or that you're going to get this cool thing or whatever it might be. I remember feeling a lot of disappointment often around those types of things. And then that carried on with me into my, 20s and 30s. Just feeling disappointed by people, and it was little things. It was like people, canceling appointments or canceling a dinner or, changing plans, or anything like that. I was really sensitive to that. Now that I am older, and again, particularly during 2020, whenever I had so much time to really sit and reflect, I realized that sure, disappointment is a thing in all of our lives. I was really able to reflect on how I was perpetuating that feeling. Every single thing that happened carried the same weight of disappointment, and that was my issue. That was my baggage and trauma and stuff. So I learned through therapy and through reading books and through a lot of self-exploration, learning that these different scenarios, they carry different weight, and I need to give them the weight that they actually carry. But that value of reliability has since become really important to me. And truthfully, this was something that this became important to me, several years before COVID, but where I really said to myself, I value reliability, because I don't love that feeling that I allowed myself to experience throughout the majority of my life. And I want to do everything that I can to make sure that I don't put that on another person. That doesn't mean that we can live our lives not disappointing people. Sometimes by us living into our values is causing disappointment in others. We can't control what others feel and what other people's values are and what they, what their needs are. But reliability is an important value for me because of my life experience. And so there are things in my professional life that are important for me. Doing the things that I say that I'm going to do is from as simple as if you email me and say, hey, Alicia, can you get me, A, B, and C and D information, so that I'm working on this project or this report. And if I say to you, I can get this to you by next week, Wednesday at noon, I'm going to either get it to you by next week, Wednesday at noon, or I'm going to at least communicate with you by next week, Wednesday at noon, where I'm at and whether or not I need more time, showing up for each other, showing up for the people that I love in my personal life is really important. If I, commit to helping you move, if I commit to, meeting you for dinner, it's important to me to live up to that, to the things that I promised to, essentially.
I'm going to remember the one about moving if that ever comes up.
Well, I also have really good boundaries is also a personal value. So I'm absolutely don't sign up for things that I don't feel that I can that I can feel like I can follow through on. But honestly, even in my work life, the people that I love, in my work, it's important for me to show up for them in the way that I say that I'm going to, and again, of course, we're all human and, life happens, but that's why communication is so key. But yeah, I don't know if that totally answers your question. It was just kind of the first thing that came to my mind when you asked.
That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, just from like the standpoint of like, I think how do our life experiences sort of formulate our values?
Yeah, well, because it's interesting because I think some people may have a different understanding or a definition of core values. So I think from my perspective, it's just I'm really curious how people explore that and touch base with it. And it sounds like the work that you've done, which is amazing, you're really connecting to that, and it's really resonating for you. And the one thing that I have seen with this work is that it's like the toothpaste getting out of the tube. You can't put it back in. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So then all of a sudden there's this richness that opens up to you. And I think sometimes people have the ability to see that in others. So they reflect, your behaviors and your attitudes may impact sort of what you think their values are. So I'm curious, you'd mentioned your staff and, the work that you're doing, in your role now, given the work that you've done and the reflection that you have and the importance that you see how it impacts you, do you see this now in others?
Do I see which aspect in others?
Do you see how other people's may have, do you see what their potential core values could be to themselves? So as you're working with people, they're doing actions and it's like, wait a minute, you know what? This aspect is an important core value to them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think that whenever I see core values in others, it's typically how it relates to my own. So if you look at, what could someone's core values be? I mean, there's just list after list after list of, core values, but what's prevalent for me, is when I'm interacting with somebody, so let's say, for example, so reliability is a core value of mine. So I am very, I don't know if it's quick to see it, or maybe I'm sensitive to it. I'll use the word sensitive. I'm sensitive to see that and feel that in others. If I feel that, because it's such an important core value to me and I make every effort to live by it, if another person is not living by that core value, I'm very quick to pick up on that. And it's also whenever I see somebody who shares a core value of mine, it's just like this instant connection. And, or think of, boundaries for another example, being able to set clear boundaries with people. That's also something that's very important in both our personal and professional lives, so for our mental health. So I am somebody who I feel I am very clear on my boundaries. I respect other people's boundaries, because being clear on boundaries isn't just respecting your own, it's respecting others. That if I interface with somebody who does not have clear boundaries and it affects them on a personal and physical and emotional level, I'm quick to see that. but also too, we talk a lot about, well, I shouldn't say we do. We have started the process of talking a lot about core values, particularly in the workplace.
Oh, like with your staff?
Yeah, so these are conversations that are really just starting, and we will continue to have more open conversations about them. So earlier in the year, we solicited an outside company to do a or I'm so sorry, like a staff satisfaction survey.
Like employee engagement, things like
Employee,
that?
yeah. Because truthfully, I mean, I've been at the organization for a year. There's been a lot of change in the past year. The organization experienced a lot of change, period, over the years. But in the past year since I'd come on board, there'd been a lot of change. So I just wanted to know where we stood. And we had an opportunity to go after one of the top workplaces in Pittsburgh. And part of that journey was to have all of our staff complete this survey. And I think we got like 70%, somewhere around 70% of our staff to complete this survey. And I'm grateful to say we did win one of the top workplaces in Pittsburgh for
Nice,
community
congrats.
human services did. Yes, I was really excited about that. But what was most enriching about the process was the feedback that we got. So we have 100, at the time, we probably had around 100 in staff. So the fact that 70-ish around there, 60 or 70 had completed the survey was a really nice sample size of our workplace culture and the morale and our values. That was a big part of it as well. The organization has a set of values that we've been considering changing. But again, I wanted to spend a good full year here before really addressing that, because I needed to get to know community human services. I needed to know who, our history and where we've been, and identify where we're going. So this really helped launch that process of identifying organizational values forward. We haven't quite settled on it. You're literally catching me while we're in the midst of the process of it.
Good timing.
Yeah, but conversations around values are going to continue to happen more and more. And one thing I love about my leadership team, my directors, our program managers, is we do have open conversations around just like having hard conversations and what's important to us, and kind of what we want to mentor each other into. What do we want to mentor our people? How do we want to mentor our people? What types of leaders do we want to be? What do we consider strong leaders? And a lot of that, you can't have that conversation without having the values conversation. So it's
Oh man, you are preaching to the choir. Put that on a bumper sticker, put it on a t-shirt. I really think that's the foundation that most people are missing. I went on the website, the CHS website, advocacy, equity, quality, relevance, and respect. Does that sound right?
Yeah, those are our current values, and that's what we're currently looking at and looking to make some adjustments.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I think the leap from personal core values to organizational values.
Yeah, I think of that often. And I hear, I listen to a lot of podcasts and I read a lot of books. I read a lot of books on leadership, and like I said, listen to a lot of podcasts as well. And there's this question on the table about personal values matching up with your workplace values.
Values congruence. There it is. One of my favorite topics.
Yeah, and I'm still learning. I mean, my perception of it is that for me, my personal values have always aligned with my workplace values, and because I don't know, I think I feel like when you work in nonprofit, that's maybe that congruency might be easier to find. I'm not really certain. I might be making that up.
Well, I don't think so, because look at, for example, talk about engagement, employee engagement. Look at the Gallup surveys that come out every year. Think about the engaged associates. Every year Gallup puts this engagement survey out, and every year it's like 70%. It goes from like 70 to 75% people are disengaged in the workforce.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that means if you're 100 people, 75% of them just don't really, are not even interested in being there. And I think, and this is just my personal opinion, but I believe that goes back to exactly what you're talking about. that maybe people are not aligning themselves with those things that are important to them. And there's research that's coming out. I was flashing this one research that I was reading before, and they looked at the positive impact of individual core values as it relates to organizations. And they looked at a healthcare facility, and they talked about how across healthcare companies, there's a certain set of values that always keep popping up.
Okay.
And it's interesting that those individual core values span across the organization. So if you're entering into this healthcare sort of industry or sector, you're probably have these types of core values. And if you didn't, this is the other thing we talk about, is that if there's some sort of friction or disconnect in your life, it's probably because it's impacting some core value that you have that maybe you're not conscious of.
Yeah, that's a really great point. Yeah. And I wonder if it's true, like if the disconnect happens at the level of recruiting, because I mean, staffing is such an issue, I think, across the country. I mean, everyone is short staffed, and, we certainly experience it in Pittsburgh. There's a big difference between hiring people just to put bodies in seats or to fill gaps. And it's another thing to recruit and hire people who align with the core values of the organization. And I don't know how much time, effort, and energy is spent on that. I can tell you at Community Human Services, it is a major, major focus for us when we're recruiting.
I love that.
Yeah, when we're interviewing. My HR department is absolutely fantastic. I'm grateful for them. And it's a core focus. So we're not just putting bodies in seats. We're actually, we're matching people with the mission and the values of the organization. And we are having a lot of success with it. Our turnover rate is minimal. I would not consider, of course you always have a person here, a person here, but where you might be short, but I would not consider us to be short staffed. I feel so fortunate, in that. And I think it's because we take so much time to match the right people with the right job. We're just seeing a lot of success with it. And the values, it's the values that we're looking at first and foremost. Is this somebody whose values align with the mission and values of the organization? Because we can teach you the rest.
Right. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of research around what I call values congruence, and you and I had did some of this work previously with allies, and I will have Sean on this, so he'll be in the future. But some of the research is not always clear, and it's interesting that you bring this up, right? So some of the research says that even if you are not aware of the organizational core values, but you are aware of your own personal core values and you sort of live them, believe them, you are probably already more likely to be engaged, less absences, more productivity. So even your own self-awareness can have an impact on how you show up. And then if you layer on top of that, you have an alignment or a congruence with your organization, that's just like magic, right? That's like when the floodgates open. It's creativity, it's engagement, it's passion, it's inspiration, it's motivation. And that's when magic happens. But we also know that not everybody or has the opportunity to work at the place that they always want to, right? So I think,
yeah, that's a great point. I was going to say, my initial gut reaction to that was, I don't know if I agree with that. That if you're clear on your values, you can be successful in a position or an organization whose values do not align with yours. My initial gut reaction to that was, I don't know if that's true or if I agree with that, because I think that you can get by on that, but maybe only for so long. However, I'm only coming from my own personal lens,
no, tell me more. This is awesome. Tell me. I'd love to hear it. Yeah,
and I think that's just for my own personal lens. I am not personally someone who I feel solid in my values, but I don't think that I could work for an organization whose values did not align with mine in some form or fashion. That's me personally. I do understand that there are folks who, well, let me say this. I am also somebody who identifies myself strongly by my career. We identify ourselves in all different ways. What I do for my career is really probably number one on the list. And if it's not number one on the list, it's pretty darn close. My career has always been very important to me. What I do, how I do it, where I do it. That's not the case for everybody. There are folks that are completely happy and satisfied with just getting a steady paycheck. And that's respectable too. I mean, it's different for everybody. So maybe for somebody that doesn't identify themselves by their career so highly, maybe that is somebody that doesn't necessarily need to have that values congruency. They can get away with being clear in their own values and working for an organization or a company whose values don't necessarily align so closely with theirs. Maybe that's where the difference comes in.
Yeah, I don't know.
My personal rub. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know, but I know some of that research says that, even if you're not totally aware and you're in yours, you still have, this motivation to go to work, and be productive and things of that nature.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah, because I don't know, and this is great to explore. And I'd love to see, if you see this, as we go forward on our journeys, we sort of, make sure we stay connected, and I'd love to hear feedback on that stuff. Because I think it's super interesting.
Talk about it all day.
Yeah. Well, because we know that, there's people, and we've seen this before, where they'll self-select out, right? They go to an organization.
100%. Yeah.
100%. Right? They'll get there, and then just something doesn't seem right, whether it's the manager, the organization, something just not clicking for them, and they move on. Or there's times where we realize, this isn't the right fit. What does that even mean? And then we sort of, have people who are, that leave. I think it's incredible when you dive down this rabbit hole, because I think there's also efficiency and benefits that can be derived from a business perspective, right?
Sure.
So I think you can avoid some of those mistakes where having people.
Oh, we see that. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. We see folks come on board and, not make it through orientation and get to a point where they say, this isn't right for me. This isn't a good fit for me, and that's fine. Yeah, that's totally fine.
So let me ask you, given the work that you've done with your core values and things of that nature, how do you think that has affected your leadership style?
Oh, I think it's driven my leadership style. I think that
do tell.
Yeah, I think it's driven my leadership style for me. Well, I mean, I think that this is the case with all of us. I mean, we, as leaders, we need a compass. I mean, we all need to have a kind of a compass that drives us. Otherwise, we're just sort of driving around here willy-nilly. For me personally, my values are my compass. So I am able to make a decision, let's just say, make a large decision for the organization. And you get that gut feeling, you're presented with a problem, you come up with a solution for the problem, you walk away from the problem, and then you go, did that feel good or did that not feel good? And if that felt good, great, but if that didn't feel good, the first thing that I do is go back to my core values to say, did I respond, react, reply, decide in a manner that is in line with my core values? Chances are, yes, I did, because I feel very clear on what those are for me. That doesn't necessarily mean sometimes you have to make hard decisions, and you have to make hard decisions that are in line with your core values, but it doesn't make them easy. But when I get that icky feeling of like, oh, like that didn't feel good. That's the first thing that I do, is revisit my core values, just to make sure that I am, have fallen in line with them. And even, decisions that are outside of me. So, I mean, I have, multiple departments, multiple leaders. I have a fantastic crew, and they're all faced with difficult things too. And they come to me for questions and guidance and, answers. And I can see them moving in certain directions that I think I agree with, and sometimes they move in directions that I don't necessarily agree with. And what I would like to see happen is for us to figure out how to move forward by our values, by our organizational values, by our personal values. Again, we're not 100% there just because we are in the process of redefining our organizational values. But that's my hope, is that when we're faced with really difficult situations, or whenever we're not necessarily in agreement with one another, that we have those values to resort back to.
Do you think that your leadership team sort of follows that thought process that you have? Have you talked with them about?
Oh, I think many of them do. Oh, yeah, I think many of them do. Yeah, especially yeah, my executive team, my directors. We all, I think, have a strong value system. And then we, and what I love about this group is that we're not afraid to be vulnerable with each other and have conversations around where we feel we aren't as strong, whether it be from a values standpoint, or, feeling confident in a certain arena, or, with a particular issue we're dealing with. But yeah, I
Wow,
do.
that is amazing. One thing I'd like to ask everybody that's going to come on the show here, and we may have done this back when, and some of the things that we did in Allies, which was a lot of fun. But I always thought, I want to ask people, because I think this gives some insight. If there was a hero or somebody that you look up to, somebody that that really comes to mind for you, who would that person be, or that who would drive inspiration for you?
Oh my gosh, who drives inspiration for me? I have to say my partner drives my partner. Um, she drives inspiration for me. We have been together for about 3 years now, and she is somebody who has helped me to slow down my mindset, so to speak, in order to be more proactive in my thinking and more proactive in my actions. She is somebody who demands vulnerability.
That's kind of cool. Scary. That could be scary though.
Like, sure can be scary. There are a lot of people in my life who I have interfaced with, who I have either learned what to do or learned what not to do. I feel like I have experienced growth from every single interaction I've ever had, whether it be a family member, a friend, a boss, whoever. I have always been able to learn and grow. Again, sometimes it is, yes, I want to do that thing. I want to talk like that. I want to be like that person. I want to explore that, thought process more, and maybe adopt some of that. Or you have those people in your life that are negative, and you're like, I want to do opposite of that thing. So I have always had these people who have helped me learn and helped me to grow. But I think that for me, she's that person who has helped me to be more comfortable in my vulnerability. And in becoming more comfortable with my own vulnerability, I have been able to really dig deep into my values, to not only to ensure that they feel right to me and that they feel good to me, but also that my actions are in line with them or congruent with them.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you
Yeah,
for sharing that.
yeah.
That's pretty wild. So, as we're wrapping up a little bit here, what would be, given your leadership experience and what you've experienced thus far, what would be one or two takeaways that you would advise anybody in a leadership role, or that's taking on a leadership role, to do in the area of sort of core values, or anything in this space that might help them?
Yeah, I would encourage anybody who is either seeking a leadership role or who is currently in a leadership role to engage in therapy. I think that we view therapy as something that is something that we seek out when we are at our lowest, whenever we are going through a really difficult time, whenever we're experiencing grief or, depression or anxiety that we feel is unmanageable. And absolutely, yes, therapy for all the reasons, all of the above. It's also beneficial to engage in therapy when we don't necessarily feel we are at our worst or at our deepest, darkest, lowest time. Truthfully, whenever we feel we can keep our head above water is a really spot on time to dig deep and look deep. I think that when we're able to see relatively clearly and, and have some semblance of confidence and, that I think that's the best time to seek out another individual to help us really kind of explore what direction we want our lives to take. So I encourage, and I have gone to therapy off and on through the years for different reasons. And it's really helped me to learn how to say hard things out loud. And as a leader, you have to say hard things out loud to yourself.
Sure.
You have to say hard things out loud to other people. You have to be comfortable with the words that, that come out of your mouth. And that would be a really big part of it. I'm also a really big fan of Brene Brown. I'm a really big fan of Simon Sinek. My partner tells me all the time, she says, why don't you read a book for fun? Like, what about reading a fictional book, like just for relaxation? Because I'm always reading books about leadership and core values and systemic racism. And she's like,
Adam Grant's
here's a book I picked up at Costco, which is great. But these are all things that do make me feel happy and relaxed. And
that's cool. Adam Grant may be some. I'll send you some stuff.
That'd be great. I'll take it. Yeah.
And when you were talking about that, it reminded me of an old quote. I'm probably not going to do it justice, but it's from JFK, and he said something to the effect of, and I know I'm probably going to screw up the exact quote, but it's sort of like the best time to fix a leaky roof is in the sunshine.
Yeah, that's exactly in line with what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
As far as the best time to seek therapy is whenever you can see through the clouds.
It's definitely, that's very awesome advice. Thank you very much for that. So if people wanted to get in touch with you to learn more about sort of your leadership style and your journey, or wanted to learn more about CHS and opportunities to sort of contribute or learn more about CHS, what's the best way to reach out and get in touch?
Oh yeah. If anyone is interested in checking out our website, we are at chscorp.org. We are in the process of rebuilding our website, but you can see what we have. You can get the gist of the work that we do it for now. And anybody is welcome to reach out to me personally. My email is aromano@chscorp.org. I welcome anyone to shoot me an email and ask me questions. I love talking about leadership. I love talking about core values. These are all my favorite subjects. I could go on all day about them. I think that I see a lot of folks and have worked with folks and, who consider themselves really good, strong leaders. And I think that it takes a lot of self-awareness to really, truly be a good, strong, successful leader. And we gain self-awareness most by interacting with people and giving feedback and receiving feedback. So I think the more people that want to reach out and talk about this stuff, the better for me. I love it.
That is great. I will put that information in the show notes if anybody wants to reach out and connect. I can't thank you enough. And we were definitely gonna have to do this again, because I want to see what your journey is like. You've been there for about a year, and the passion and the inspiration and the ideas that you're bringing, I want to see what's going on, 6 months, a year from now. So
I'd love to. I'd
love to do this again.
That'd be great. Thanks, Thomas.
Well, hey, listen, thank you very much, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good.
All right, bye.